नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीचैतन्य मनोयभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरो वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान् वितांश्च नमो महावदन्नाय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्ण कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरतिशे नमः। आराध्यो भगवान् व्रजेश तनयस् तद्धाम वृन्दावनम् रम्या काचिदुपासना व्रजवधूवर्गेण तया कल्पिता श्रीमद् भागवत पुराणयमलं प्रेम पुमार्थो महान् श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभुर्मत इदं नायत्र आग्रह परः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय जय श्री चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद जय द्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद। जय 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 श्री चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद जय द्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद। जय 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 श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद। Hare Krishna. Today is Wednesday, August 28th, 2020, and we are continuing on the theme of Radhashtami. Yesterday we sang a couple very nice Rasik bhajans glorifying Radharani, one composed by Srila Rupa Goswami, Radhe Jai Jai Madhav Daite, and the other one composed by Srila Sanatan Goswami Pad, which is the Radhika Ashtakam. Also, we highlighted the appearance day based on the Puranic version of how Radharani appeared to King Vrishabhanu and Kirtida Mata. So today I would like to uh, share with all of you the glorification of Radharani based on a wonderful conversation between Rai Ramananji and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rai Ramananji is none other than Vishakha Sakhi, one of the principal Ashta Sakhis or the 8 Sakhis, one of them in the Nitya Leela, in the eternal pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vraj Mandal in Golok Dham. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as you all know, is Sri Krishna himself who took the bhav or the mood of Srimati Radharani, teaching us the pure bhakti in the mood of Sri Radha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared about 532 years ago in West Bengal in a town called Mayapur, which is about 100 kilometers from Calcutta city. And he appeared to Sachi Mata, and his father's name was Jagannath Mishra. They are both incarnations of Yashoda Ma and Nanda Baba. And Baldauji or Balramji appeared as Nityananda Prabhu. Some of his most intimate associates, they are also eternally present in the spiritual world. And like Advaita Acharya, he himself being an incarnation of Sadashiv, the source of Shivji, and an incarnation of a combination of Mahavishnu, who is the source of the entire 25% of the material creation, from whom all the different material Brahmans emanate, and the other 2 Vishnus, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu and Sirodakshai Vishnu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also appeared along with Gadadhar Pandit, who is none other than Srimati Radharani, and Srivas Acharya, who is Naradji. These 5 personalities are known as the Panchatattva. And by the blessings of the Panchatattva and all other Gauranga Mahaprabhu's associates, we will try to dive deep into this wonderful conversation between Rai Ramananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. May the words that emanate from my mouth be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, all the Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, to all the listeners, to my humble obeisances to all of you, my millions and millions of obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, to the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, Acharya Guruvar, to Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and to all his associates. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had actually taken sannyas and at the very young age of 24 years old. And then he actually wanted to go to Sri Vrindavan Dham. But his mother wanted him, she made a request because she was just by herself, because his father, Mahaprabhu's father, had already left for the eternal abode. And she wanted that her son, although who had taken sannyas, she could actually get news about him very easily. So he had requested instead that you should stay in Jagannath Puri, because a lot of Vaishnavas would be visiting Jagannath Puri. It's much more closer than Vrindavan. So Mahaprabhu, obviously, who is Krishna himself in the mood of Radharani, kind of, in his transcendental Leela, he did want to stay in Jagannath Puri, which is a very, very special place. Very few people understand what Jagannath Puri is. Jagannath Puri is none other than the sthali of Viyogini Radha. Viyogini Radha means that Radharani who is in separation of Krishna. And the maximum separation, the Vipralamba Bhav, was experienced by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu along with his 2 intimate associates, Sarup Damodar Goswami, who is none other than Lalita Sakhi and the Nitya Krishna Leela, Radha Krishna Leela, and he was also accompanied by Rai Ramananji, who is Vishakha Sakhi. And there's a very uh, special place in Jagannath Puri known as the Gambhira, where Mahaprabhu resided there for the last 12 years of his pastimes that happened here. But prior to that, he went all over Bharatvarsh in India, and he traveled by Padyatra. And during his Padyatra, he was actually, before he left Puri, he left Puri a couple times, and then finally he settled down in Puri for the last 2 years. So when he had left Puri originally to go preach the glories of the holy name, Janu Lambita Bhujau Kanakayo Dato Sankirtanai Pitaravo Kamalaya Taksho Vishwam Baro Vijavaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priya Karo Karuna Avtaro. Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Nityanand Prabhu, they came here to this material world for one very special reason also, along with the internal reason, the external reason being to preach the Sankirtan, Yuga Dharma Palo. And they were both very much out of pure compassion, gave the holy name Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, to everyone very freely. That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Pranam Mantra aptly describes him as Namo Mahavadanyaya. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. That personality known as Krishna Chaitanya, he came and gave the holy name of Krishna with great compassion, and he is considered one of the utmost givers of charity. And what did he give in charity? Did he give millions of dollars or rupees, crores of rupees? No, something even way beyond, better than all the material possessions in the entire material world. He gave the sublime prem, Krishna prema pradayate, because Krishna belongs to Radharani exclusively. We heard about that yesterday, that Radharani, she is in the highest mood in the Madhurya Ras of Mahabhav, known as the Madanakya and Mohanakya Bhav, and she is in the Bhamya Bhav, and in the Bhamya Bhav, the mood is that Krishna, you are mine, and Krishna really loves that mood. Rather than there are devotees who are saying, Krishna, we are yours, Krishna, we are yours, as you say we will do. But Radharani and her camp is of a very different mood, and they are of, Krishna, you are ours and you will do exactly as we say. And that is what is very, very a different mood which Krishna loves, which he cannot even get through the different devotees and even the other gopis of Raj of the Dakshin Bhav, and also even by even by the worship of the greatest sages and devotees in the creation. He cannot get that kind of worship that the gopis in the Bhamya Bhav, headed by Srimati Radharani, uh, uh, reciprocates, and in the sense that they even speak very roughly with Krishna. They even rebuke Krishna. They even chastise Krishna. And Krishna feels the ecstasy like none other than, like Krishna is much more pleased with the abuse of the gopis and the chastisement of the gopis in the Bhamya Bhav than the choice verses of the Vedas and the yajnas and so many other tapasyas that many devotees perform to please Krishna. Nothing can please him better than this. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after he set out for the Padyatra, before he went, Sarvabhautacharya, the Acharya at that time in Jagannath Puri, was a very well established personality who taught Vedanta. And by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who he was actually a Vedantist or a Brahmavadi, more or less a Mayavadi, but he was converted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at the very tender age of 24 years into Vaishnavism. and Sarva Bhattacharya understanding the glories of, of Krishna Prem, the glories of Madhurya Rasa, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu imbibed in his heart. He actually then encouraged Mahaprabhu that if you are going down south, you will meet, please make sure, I request you to give darshan to a very nice devotee known as Rai Ramananda. He is the minister in the Desh of Vidarbha in South India. And please, since you are going down south, please definitely give him your darshan. And he highly recommended and spoke about Rai Ramananji. Of course, these are wonderful esoteric pastimes of Sri Krishna. How is it not possible that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, in the mood of Radharani, not meet the most Priya Sakhi, one of them known as Vishakha? So Rai Ramananda actually, in his pastimes, on these earthly pastimes, he actually became a very huge, big minister, holding a very big post for the Desh of Vidarbha in South India. And he performed his duties as a perfect minister. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to many, many different places in along his Padyatra. And he had actually visited in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in Madhya Leela chapter 8, it is mentioned that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after visiting the famous temple of Jiyad Narsingha in South India, in that part of Vidarbha, he then proceeded towards the Godavari river in the town of Vidarbha. And there, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived, uh, there from far he could see that a very uh, uh, with majestic opulence, a minister accompanied with Brahmins and many other associates, uh, assistants, and different soldiers came there, and it was his uh, daily uh, uh, daily habit of Rai Ramananji to come and take bath in the Godavari river there. And then when he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, an effulgent sannyasi who was shining bright like a golden bright sun, standing under a tree, he actually approached him and offered him obeisances. Seeing a wonderful effulgent sannyasi, he offered obeisances, and they kind of recognized each other, who they were, but they were very silent. And then Mahaprabhu indicated that come back in the evening and come back as an ordinary person. And Rai Ramananji, after finishing his bath, he left back and to the palace, and then he came back in the evening dressed up as an ordinary person, alone, without any ministers, without any associates, without any soldiers, to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there's this conversation is about this wonderful meeting that actually glorifies Srimati Radharani. But at the same time, this esoteric conversation is so important to understand the to understand the intricacies of devotional life also. It has so much in this conversation that perhaps if one simply studies this conversation, one will get the essence of pure bhakti in this conversation. This is what the Gaudiya Vaishnavism is all about. And Gaudiya Vaishnavism is about the Madhurya Rasa, which already contains the Shant Ras, the Dasya Ras, the Vatsalya Ras, and the other all the other four rasas that are there. They are present in the Madhurya Ras. If you all remember, I had mentioned Shant Ras is like a relationship one can have with the Supreme Lord in a very neutral way, like yogis. When they get their perfection, they are able to see the Paramatma in their own hearts, and they can see the Paramatma in others' hearts. And that is the perfection that the yogis are very satisfied with. But there is no seva involved. They're just happy by the darshan of Paramatma. So then they are satisfied, and their spiritual journey stops there. Then there's another devotee who wants to build a relationship with the Supreme Lord as a das, and the Supreme Lord is the master. He is the Prabhu, and that is known as the Dasyaras. And in that Dasyaras, the devotee serves the Lord and the relationship is like that of a servant and a master. And Vaikuntha is full of dasyaras predominantly, and the most the exalted example in dasyaras is Hanumanji. We have mentioned this. For example, even in the Hanuman Chalisa, Tulsidas mentions that Sada Raho Raghupati Ke Dasa, because that is Hanumanji's bhav, that is Hanumanji's liking. That's what he likes to. Also, eternally, you have a relationship. You may have a relationship with Hanumanji Maharaj in the Dasyaras. Then there are certain devotees who who would like to have a relationship with the Supreme Lord as a friend, Sakyaras, and that is also possible. So, like that, when the perfection comes and when one leaves their body, then their bhav has already fructified into a love or a loving relationship as a friend of Krishna. And when they go back to the spiritual world, they can become friends of Krishna or some of his avatars. But especially, friendship is of the highest intimacy in the highest planet of Vaikuntha or Krishna Loka, known as Golok Vrindavan, where one can join the team of all the Gop Sakhas like Sridham, Subal, Madhumangal, etc. And then there is the relationship one can have with the Supreme Lord as the Vatsalya Ras or the parental love. One may want to have the Lord as their baby or their child and treat the baby and give the loving needs that a baby is given by a loving parent. And that is like Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda Mai, and Rohini Mataji, and so many other gopis. That bhav is there, and so many devotees who consider Krishna as their child, those who worship him with love in the Laddu Gopal feature or in the Srinathji feature, where Krishna is only a little baby or a 7-year-old child, and all the needs are being taken care of. Especially the the Vallabh Sampradaya, Pushti Marg Sampradaya is very well known for their Vatsalya Ras predominantly. And when those devotees attain their perfection, they enter Golok Vrindavan, and they are entering into those Nitya Leela or the eternal pastimes of Krishna, where he is constantly a baby. He does not grow up, and he reciprocates by accepting the service of those pure devotees who have entered that realm. And the fifth relationship being the Madhurya Rasa. Madhurya Rasa being the sweet relationship that of a paramour, a beloved and a lover, lover and a beloved, like a husband and wife, like a boyfriend and a girlfriend, where this is relationship is extremely pure. It is not based on any kind of lust that we see in the material world. All the five relationships that are there are also present in this material world. They are present here because they are present in the spiritual world, the material world being a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. And in this world, all these five relationships of neutrality, uh, of servitorship, of friendship, of parenthood, and of conjugal love. Uh, these relationships are based on a bodily concept, and they are based completely on sense gratification. All these relationships come to an end when one does not when one stops giving sense gratification, whether it is a son, a friend, a master, or a boss, or it could be a girlfriend or a husband and a wife. Those relationships come to a complete end when they are they are severed, when sense gratification of each other stops. But in the spiritual world, it is not like that. No matter how Krishna treats them, no matter how Krishna behaves, he is the loving personality, the vastu that they love. He is the object of love. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of his most important teachings was spoken in the Gambhira in Jagannath Puri, known as the Sistastakam, which is indeed the essence. Also, just like this conversation, I can also say that this conversation is more or less an explanation of Chaitanya Sistastakam in a more detailed way, or in an analogous way. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his mood of Radharani, says when he attains that mood, Krishna has to work very hard to get that mood of Radharani. And he worked very, very hard in the Gambhira. He did a lot of tapasya to attain that mood of Radha, to attain that complete mood of Radha. And at the end, in the Sistastakam, which is there in the Antyalila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it seems like it is described by one of the acharyas that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like a volcano, a golden volcano. Uh, and that golden volcano, uh, when it erupted in the Gambhira, it emanated golden lava, and that golden lava is analogous or compared to the Chaitanya Sistastakam because it is full of Radha Prem. And in that, in the last verse of the Chaitanya Sistastakam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Asli Shapad Ratam Pinashtumam Adarshanam Marmo Harto Karotuva Yatha Tatha Va Vidhato Lampato Mat Prana Natha Seva Paraha. Meaning, he's saying that whether you kick me or embrace me, uh, whether you kick me or embrace me, oh Krishna, you are the transcendental autocrat and you are my prananath, birth after birth after birth, and there is nobody else. And that is the bhav of Raj. That is the bhav of Madhuri Ras. That is the highest pinnacle of Madhuri Ras of Sri Radharani and the gopis of Raj. Whether you, like for example, the gopis of Braj, they were given the most amongst all the devotees of Krishna, or amongst all the devotees of Krishna's expansions, whether it is Mother Sita as Lord Ramachandra's consort, or so many different Hare Krishna, so many different devotees in different um, as worshippers of different avatars, including including Sri Krishna, nobody has been put through the hardest litmus test than the gopis of Vrindavan or the Vrajvasis. The the separation, the pangs of separation, and the misery that was given to them by Sri Krishna is uncomparable. Uh, Not even compared to Mother Kunti, who is asking for more and more vipada santasu. Please give me more and more miseries so that I can remember you more and more. But for the gopis of Vrindavan, for the Vrajvasis, it was most natural to remember Sri Krishna. And, and Sri Krishna gave them so much separation. Actually, Krishna left at the age of 12 years. Between 12 and 13 years, he left Vrindavan to go to Mathura. And then he never came back. It is said he had 125 years of Leela that he performed on this bhumi when he came here. So can you imagine the maximum of the association that Dwarkadhish Krishna gave was to the Dwarkavasis, over 100 years of association. But to the Vrajvasis, he barely gave, from the percentage point of view, hardly you can say that they got about 10% of the pastimes in this material, in this Bhaumya Leela of Sri Krishna. But in spite of that, the loving, the love of the Vrajvasis, the love of the gopis is incomparable. In spite of all this, and this all Krishna indeed he did to enhance their love. He knew that only they can handle it. Not all devotees can handle it. Everybody has different levels of handling situations, and that is the reason Krishna gave this. He reciprocated in such a way by giving them the separation or the vipralamba bhav of that highest extent, so that that transcendental ecstasy at their love would increase. As the famous saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. When we see somebody every day on a regular basis, then we do not value the association of that person. But if we see somebody who we love or we care for after many, many years, that waiting itself increases the crescendo of love. So similarly, Krishna did a very special favor. He did a favor to himself and he did a favor to the Vrajvasis, because it is just not that the Vrajvasis felt separation from Krishna. Krishna himself felt the separation too, because he also needed to increase that separation, that deep separation of Vipralamba Bhav. So like this, I had to kind of mention the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how and why, and this special conversation will highlight some of the most important teachings that I hope devotees can take home today and meditate on it, because there's nothing beyond this. I'm telling you the truthful thing. If after today's special session that you will hear, there's no theism. There is no such degree of prem or of Godhead that one can attain or one can achieve beyond this. This is it. This is the ultimate, and you can decide for yourself once we are through this particular conversation. This conversation is so deep that it can take many days just to finish this conversation. But however, being Radhashtami, I'm going to very briefly describe some of the important and highlight some of the important points of this conversation. And I hope devotees will really take this to heart and pay deep attention to this conversation, because this will probably change our dimension of devotional service or bhakti or our spiritual life. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rai Ramananji met on the banks of the Godavari that evening. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was requested to stay more at a few more days by Rai Ramananji at that location, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in that Vidarbhadesh in a Brahmana's house. But every evening they used to meet on the banks of the Godavari. And who was meeting? Meeting of three personalities. Yes, again I repeat, three personalities. Who are those three personalities? It's Radha Krishna and Vishakha Sakhi. Radha Krishna is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Vishakha Sakhi is Rai Ramananji. So it is amazing how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by his own example, he wanted to glorify Ramanand Rai. See, this is the beauty of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is Atmaram. He is capable and fully satisfied. He is Abhigya and Swarat. As we will be studying these two words in our next session on Sunday, when we will be going into the second session of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. These two words are being used in the Srimad Bhagavatam first verse, Abhigya and Swarat. He knows everything, and he is Swarat, he is fully independent. But in spite of that, sometimes he acts in such a way that he wants to glorify his devotees. This is the beauty of Krishna. Krishna and Radharani, these are the qualities. And these are the same qualities that are imbibed by the pure Vaishnavas. For example, I can immediately think of our most dear A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. It is not that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Krishna doesn't have a lot of wonderful, first class, amazing devotees and intimate associates. They're all there. Like the Chaitanya Charitamrita author, Sri Krishnaraj Kaviraj Goswami, was a very exalted disciple who lived on the banks of Radhakund in Govardhan. And he, at the age of 95, composed this Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was the disciple of the great exalted personality, Raghunath Das Goswami, one of the most wonderful Vaishnavas of that time, one of the 6 Goswamis, who had actually followed in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, who are none other than very much intimate associates. I've mentioned that they are all Manjaris. But it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's wish that A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada be glorified. That's why he declared 500 years ago, 532 years ago, that Prithvi che adi nagar adi gram sarvatra hoi bhi more nam prachar. He had already declared 500 years ago that in every town and village my name will be spread. And Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada was the commander-in-chief of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's army or Sankirtan band, the Sankirtan movement. And although Rupa Goswami could have done that, Sanatan Goswami could have done that, so many acharyas, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur could have done that. They're all very, very capable. And because Srila Prabhupada is subservient to them. So if the master has to be very capable to produce such a wonderful disciple, and if the disciple can do the magic of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world, we should be very thankful to those masters, the spiritual masters in that line, how capable they are. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to glorify A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada by giving him this seva. Similarly, in this meeting of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rai Ramananji, he is asking Rai Ramananji just like a student is asking questions. He's asking this very first question, and he's saying, please tell me, Ramanand, what is the ultimate goal of life? And please quote from scripture. I want scriptural evidence. So that is a very important message here. There's a lot of philosophy also, and of course there is glorification of Radharani as we gradually go into this conversation. The most important point that I see when he asked this question to Rai Ramananji, he takes this very humble role of asking these questions to his subordinate. Vishaka Sakhi is a subordinate. Vishaka Sakhi is subordinate to Radharani. But in spite of that, he takes that role as a very, very obedient Vaishnava, asking for the answers to some of the most important questions in life by making Ramanand Rai the Guru. Now, actually, Ramanand Rai is also Guru of Radharani in one sense. We also mentioned yesterday in Lalita Ashtakam, we had mentioned that verse of Lalita Ashtakam where Lalita is one of the Gurus of Radharani, how she teaches her to take the Bhamya Bhav. That, hey, Krishna, you don't know, he's a cheater. You are very naive, Radha. Don't let your naiveness or your innocence, overpower this Krishna's cheatingness. So I will need to teach you how to behave with Krishna. So like that, in one sense, they are, reciprocatory gurus. Sometimes Radhaji is the guru, sometimes Krishna is the guru, sometimes Lalita Vishaka is the guru, sometimes Tunga Vidya Sakhi, she is the guru, she is the expert. And in the Raghunath Das Goswami's treatise, Mukta Charita, they approach Tunga Vidya Sakhi and they make her the guru, the Ashta Sakhis, and says, Tunga Vidya Sakhi, what should we do now? The Shyam Sundar has behaved very erratically and he has gone to some Dasi, and we can see that, he has been cheating on Sri Radha. So what will be the repentance for Shyam Sundar? So you be the guru. And Krishna also said, yes, Tunga Vidyaji, you say, what should be done? And that way, the Mukta Charita is a wonderful treatise. Maybe someday, when the opportunity arises, for some devotees who will be deeply interested, we can take that wonderful book of Raghunath Goswami about this Rasik book on Mukta Charita, which is amazing, which is extremely humorous. At the same time, it is full of mellow or rasa. Anyways, so the idea is that we have to approach in a very, very humble way. And that too, Mahaprabhu says, please tell me the ultimate goal. Any questions, but I want Vedic evidence. I want scriptural evidence. This is very important. A lot of people in nowadays have this fashion of hearing so many things that certain person is God or he's an avatar of God and this and that. But where is the scriptural evidence? That's why Krishna in Mahaprabhu and Radharani's mood, they are specifically asking, although they know everything, but they're specifically asking that based on scriptural evidence, tell me, O Ramananji, what is the ultimate goal of life? Now, actually, Ramanand Roy is Vishaka Sakhi. This is also indicated in the high topics of devotional service, and it is to be heard and understood from advanced devotees. Although Mahaprabhu knows everything, he still asks this wonderful question to relish what pure devotees comment. So this is also another very important thing. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even in the Gambhira, he used to ask Sarup Damodarji, who is Lalita Sakhi, and Rai Ramananji later on, because Rai Ramananji, after giving up his ministerial post, he joins Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the final 12 years of his eternal pastimes on this earth in Jagannath Puri. And he stays constantly with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira, him and Sarup Damodarji. So always Mahaprabhu used to ask questions. Mahaprabhu used to ask questions to many devotees whenever they came to take darshan, like, tell me this, tell me that. And why? One of the things is because he relished what the other devotees, the Vaishnavas, one of the things about the Vaishnava's heart is that somebody can speak about one verse or understand one particular verse or a particular topic, and they may have a very, very amazing way of explaining verses. Their realizations can be so profound, and there are different dimensions. Vistar, they do Vistar. And that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to relish. And that's why he not only gave the opportunity for them to speak, but he used to relish the words and the explanations of those Vaishnavas. It was like nectar to his ears. So Mahaprabhu used to ask these questions to many of his personal associates, as I said, and and this to relish and to do vistar and to expand on the tattva and rasa. Ramanand Rai gives the following answers. He starts answering this question, and he starts by first quoting the Srimad Bhagavad Gita and then also from Srimad Bhagavatam. Ramanand Rai ji says, he says that the Varnashram Dharma is the way to please Krishna. By performing one's Swadharma properly, one can satisfy Sri Krishna. So he quoted this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarnyam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, these four varnas and four ashrams. What are the four varnas and four ashrams? The four varnas and the four ashrams are the varnas are the and the four ashrams are that the Shudra, the Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Brahman. And the ashrams are Brahmachari ashram, Grihastha ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, and Sannyas ashram. So Chaturvarnyam Maya Srishtam. These four varnas and four ashrams are created by me. And Krishna created those for the gradual upliftment for their spiritual or Krishna consciousness. Nobody is left out. In other words, even though one who's born is a Shudra. Shudra basically in Sanskrit means that one who's born ignorant. And ignorant people generally are the labor class. They're not interested in scriptures. They're not interested in any kind of Brahminical qualities or worship of the Lord. They're simply, and rightfully so, sometimes it so happens that they're born so poor that they do not have the time, like the Brahmin class or the aristocratic class, to spend time 3-4 hours a day chanting, reading, or attending temple programs and things like that, because they're so poor that they have to work many hours to just make their ends meet. And of course, it is based on their karma that they're getting a birth in such a situation. But Krishna is so kind that even for those Shudras who completely serve the other classes nicely by using their Swadharma, their Swadharma is to serve the Vaishya, the Kshatriya community, and the Brahmin community. Of course, nowadays we have to understand that the Varnashram system does not exist. We are all Shudras. 99.99% Shudras. Because even the so-called Brahmins born in a Brahmin family, their qualities are not Patanam, Patanam, Yajanam, Yajanam. They do not study the Vedas. They don't teach the Vedas. They don't practice the spiritual practices of Yajna, etc., or help other people in their spiritual life. They are simply looking for jobs. The so-called big Brahmin families with big names, they are working in government offices or they are working in private offices. And basically, those jobs are like Shudra jobs. Unfortunately, these are the words of Srila Prabhupada. That Varnashram system has almost become extinct now. That is the reason why, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy and by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, everybody can become a Vaishnava, which is beyond the four Varnas and four ashrams. Ultimately, the goal of the Varna and ashram is to become a pure Vaishnava. Vaishnava is not a jati. It is that a lot of people have this misconception, and even in India, when you ask, "Bhai, what are you?" "Oh, we are Vaishnavas." Well, that is, they are saying that in that pretense that this is a jat, like Brahman jat, or they are this jat or that jat. No, Vaishnavas are beyond the four Varna and ashram, and Varnashram system is set up by Sri Krishna so that all can become Vaishnavas, no matter what their status of life is. And Mahaprabhu made everybody Vaishnavas by giving them, by skipping all other, by giving the most sublime subject matter and promoting everybody, even without the other what do you call sanskaras, to a Vaishnava platform, just by giving the holy name Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that Bharat Bhumite Manusha Janma Hoilo Ja, Jiban Sharthak Kori Karo Paro Upkar, Amar Agya Taro Ei Desh, Jare Dekho Tare Kaho Krishna Updesh. He says, you all become gurus. Amar agya taro ides. Amar agya guru hoya. Jare dekho tare o Krishna. All of you all become gurus. Know your Krishna consciousness. Chant the holy names. And when we chant the holy names properly, we control our senses. And a real guru is that guru who can control the senses, as mentioned by Rupa Goswami in the Updesh Amrit in the very first sloka. So this Varnashram system, Varnashram Dharma, Ramananda Rai says that is the most perfect way. And he quotes this Bhagavad Gita verse because it is correct that one who follows the Varnashram system correctly will be promoted to pure Vaishnavism, and pure bhakti is guaranteed, and those persons go back home, back to garden. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Iha Bahya, Aage Kaho. This is external. Please tell me more. Please. Then he said that Karma Arpana, that is considered as the highest duty of mankind or the highest goal. Offering everything to Krishna is the ultimate. And he quotes the verse of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, number 27, where he says that everything should be karma arpana, yat karosi yad asnasi, that famous verse. Whatever you do, you offer to Sri Krishna. So Mahaprabhu says, Iha Bahya, this is also external. Tell me more. So devotees, please pay attention. Today what I'm going to share with you is a very high level subject matter which has been very simplified, and it is again the essence of pure devotional service. I don't think you will ever get anything beyond this. I promise you that. There are so many other things which will actually culminate into what we are discussing today. That will be the essence. Then he says that Rai Ramananji, when Mahaprabhu says that tell me more, or he kind of, in a very polite way rejects that there is something beyond karma arpan. So then he says, then one should give up swadharma. And then he goes into the most important verse of the Bhagavad Gita. When he says giving up swadharma means he's quoting that verse, again, because that Mahaprabhu says you have to give me scriptural evidence. So then he quotes that verse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita from chapter 18, verse number 66, which is the samam bonam of Bhagavad Gita. And what is that samam bonam? Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tam sarva papebhya mokshasyami ma suchaha. Please give up all kinds of varieties of dharma, or all the different swadharmas that you have. The dharma that I am a father, I am a mother, I am a teacher, I am a businessman, I am this, I am that. These are all upadhis. Eventually one has to give up that. And it does not mean that one should whimsically or artificially give up. Otherwise we will fall flat on our face. Right? Like it is like, somebody who wants to we have personally experienced that sometimes, once some starts suddenly exercising and they want to run and they want to lose weight, their goal is to lose 20 kilos. So what they do is the very first day they start doing their exercise, they will push themselves so much that they will run more than the capability of body, and then they will go flat. They will be on the bed, the whole body will be sore, and then they will not even go back to even walking or doing normal exercise. So similarly, even spiritual practices are progressive in nature, and that is one of the reasons why Krishna set up the Varnashram system. That is why Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita in a very gradual way, so that we can attain that and we will not fall flat on our faces or imitate the pure devotees. But the Krishna is giving that ultimate instruction that we should keep on our mind, that all these different duties that we have, they are temporary, they are based on this body. But you are not this body, O Arjun. You are a spirit soul, and the spirit soul only duty is to satisfy Krishna. That is why he says, Ma mekam sharanam vraja. So the question may arise that, if I give up my duty as a son, or if I might give up my duty as the leader of a country, the whole country, I am the prime minister of the country, president of the country, I am the king of the country, my duty is to take care of the country. But it is all based on the bodily concept. Because at the end of the day, pleasing Krishna is the best. Somebody may say, well, fine, I can give up everything, but then as a king or as a father or as a mother or as a teacher or as a worker, my duty is to the boss or to the family or to the country, etc. Then I will incur sin for not doing my duty, which Krishna also said that if you don't do your duty, you will be incurring sin. So Krishna also in the Bhagavad Gita, he says something in the beginning, but after the gradual understanding of Arjuna, in this case the devotee, he gives him a higher level of consciousness, where he even says that, okay, the other gyan that I gave you of karma gyan and karma yoga and all, this is superseding that, and karma, etc. So basically, don't worry that, if somebody thinks that I won't be doing my duty just by following the instructions of Krishna or pleasing Krishna or doing only devotional service, then if you are worried that you will incur karmic reactions, don't worry. Aham tam sarva papebhyo mokshashyami ma sucha. Do not worry, oh Arjun. Mam ekam sharanam vraja. So give up your swadharma. So like that, gradually, Rai Ramananji is quoting scripture, starts with the Bhagavad Gita. So Mahaprabhu then says, Iho Bahya, this is also external. Tell me more and tell me something better. Now, can you imagine if I'm giving a class in ISKCON, in a Sunday feast, or even in somebody's home program, and if I said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has rejected the most important shloka of Bhagavad Gita, then they will say, Prabhuji, please don't speak such things. There are people who will not understand this, but most of the people, they themselves don't understand, including people who have held management positions. And perhaps that will be my last class. But what I'm speaking today is based on what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. So in other words, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also in a very polite way, he has kind of, said, tell me more, tell me something more and beyond the Bhagavad Gita. So this is another thing. We should be willing to graduate more and more, because the spiritual subject is Ananda Ambudi Vardhanam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said in the first verse of the Sistastakam, it increases the bliss. Ananda, bliss. Ambudi means the ocean, and Vardhanam, it increases or it nourishes. And Ananda Ambudi Vardhanam means when we advance in our spiritual life, we feel like we are diving into an ocean of an unlimited ocean of bliss, which keeps on increasing. It is not static. It is not static. Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is not static, it is dynamic. And if we don't feel that dynamics in our everyday day-to-day life, then there is something wrong if we get stagnant. That means it is like a boat whose anchor has been thrown, and then no matter how much you row, it will only go as far as the length of that anchor chain or the anchor rope. Beyond that, it's not a go. So most of our lives are like that. When we take to spiritual life, we show interest, we like spiritual life, but either we don't get the proper guidance or the encouragement, because most of the devotees that we associate are of Kanishta Adhikar. And there are different levels of Vaishnavism: Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam. And even within there are three delineations: Kanishta, Kanishta, Kanishta Madhyam, Kanishta Uttam. Then there is Kanishta Madhyam, Madhyam Madhyam, Madhyam Uttam. And then there is Kanishta Uttam, Madhyam Uttam, and Uttam Uttam. So Uttam Uttam are those Vaishnava Acharyas like Rupa Goswami, Vallabhacharya Pad, and Srila Prabhupada, and the entire Gaudiya Vaishnava line. But we are all Kanishtas. Means the basic definition of a Kanishta Vaishnava is that they have faith in God, they have faith in Krishna, but they do not respect the other Vaishnavas. And they do not really have much of an interest in advancing because they think they are very advanced. I repeat that. Their own advancement is checked because they feel that they're highly advanced. They don't feel like listening to other Vaishnavas. Oh, what does he know? Or what does this person know? I know better than him. And the attitude of a Kanishta Vaishnava is that everybody else is cheap except he or she is the best. That is the definition of a Kanishta. Madhyam Vaishnava's definition is he not only has faith in the Lord, but also respects all Vaishnavas. He makes friends with all the Vaishnavas, and he tries to keep away from abhaktas. That way, his bhakti will be protected. And an Uttam Bhakta is always thinking that I am the worst and everybody is the best. And that is why they are so advanced in nature. And Uttam Bhakta has to come to the level of Madhyam Uttam in order to preach. Otherwise, they cannot preach. And Uttam Vaishnava, they are thinking that I am the worst. Like Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami in the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he writes that I am like a stool, a worm in the stool. He feels so humble. But at the same time, he says that I'm empowered by my Guru, Raghunath Das Goswami. I'm empowered by Madan Mohanji, Govind Devji, Gopinathji. And that is the reason why I'm able to compile this esoteric subject matter of writing the biography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So again, this is just to give you some idea. So why we have to advance? Yes, it's good to hear. For the last 30 years, I've been going to temples and hearing about the Bhagavad Gita pravachans, and they are all about the same thing again and again, which is good to hear. But where is the advancement? The advancement is required. And just like if we stay in the 5th grade or 10th grade for 5 years, or we keep on failing, is our father or mother going to be happy? Is our grandfather going to be happy? They'll be very unhappy. They'll say, what a duffer you are. Can't you go further and graduate? There is so much more to learn. So similarly, our great-grandfather, spiritual grandfather, Srila Prabhupada, will be extremely pleased if we take that step. But that step has to be taken very nicely, gradually, and properly, and that desire has to be there. And the moment that desire arises, Krishna within our heart will make the arrangement to make us associate with advanced devotees. There is a lack of association with advanced devotees in our life. That is why that stagnancy is there. That is why that desire to graduate and further graduate into the Ananda Ambudhi Vardhanam is lacking within all of us. And that will only, when that sincere desire arises, it will come. So then, coming back to this conversation, even we should feel like Mahaprabhu is saying that, tell me more, because there is something beyond the Bhagavad Gita. So what he is saying is that Mahaprabhu says that iho bahya, aage kaho. So then he even quotes a couple more verses from the Bhagavad Gita, that Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktir labhate param. So one should be situated on a very high spiritual platform and become Brahma Bhuta, spiritually realized. And we should always be, the symptoms of that devotee is always happy, is never hankering after something. Na shochati, na kankshati. Kankshati means not hankering, and shochati means not lamenting, neither for the dead, neither for the alive, and neither for na harshasi, na shokasi, even within the happiness or within shok or miseries, they are equipoised. So one should become a Brahmabhut, a very, very highly realized spirit soul. So he quotes that verse, and Mahaprabhu says, iha bahya. And then like this, he says, Jnana Shunya Bhakti Sadhya Sar. He says that Jnana Shunya Bhakti Sadhya Sar. Rai Ramananada says that one should go beyond Jnana. What is that nice verse? That again, I'm reminded again and again, that Anya Vilashita Shunya Jnana Karma Navritam. All other desires of Jnana and Karma should be Shunya, zero. That is the topmost bhakti. And then he quotes this verse from he says that Jnane Prayasam Udapasya Namante Eva. This is from Brahmaji quoting in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He goes into the Srimad Bhagavatam verse where he says, Jnane Prayasam Udapasya Namante Va Eva Jivanti San Mukharitam Bhavadiya Vartam Sthane Sthita Shruti Gatam Tanuva Manobhir Ye Prayaso Jito Api Jito Api Asi Taistri Lokyam. Arthat, meaning Jnane Prayasam, one should give up all kinds of methods for obtaining empirical knowledge of the Mayavadis, knowledge of Vedantas, that will simply mislead us to the point that we will think that we are God or we are one with Him, etc. Jnane Prayasam Udapasa Namanteva, and we should bow down in bhakti. Jivanti San Mukharitam. We should give our lives to Krishna by looking towards Him, by becoming Sanmukh, not away from Him. Bhavadiya Vartam Sthane Sthita Shruti Gatam Tanuva Manobhir. Wherever we are situated, Sthane Sthita. Shruti, we should hear the topics of Krishna consciousness. Shruti Gatam tanuva, and we should engage our whole body. Tanuva, va means our speech and our mind, manobhir. And ye prayaso ajito jito api. And by doing so, by ye prayaso, by doing so, by doing these pure activities of this devotional service, one can conquer Ajit. One of the names of Krishna is Ajit. Ajito jito api asi. One can conquer the unconquerable Krishna. Asi trilokyam, in these three worlds, in this Brahman. So like this, Rai kahe prema bhakti sarva sadhya shar. So Ramananda Rai says that prem bhakti, the loving relationship with Sri Krishna, is the ultimate goal of all sadhana, or the ultimate goal of all devotees. And then he also quotes a nice thing, like again, this is also from Srimad Bhagavatam, that nanopachara kriti pujanam artha bandha prema neva bhakta hridayam sukha vidrutam syat yavat shut asti jatare jarathapi pasi tavat sukhaya bhavato. He says that as long as there is hunger and thirst within the stomach, varieties of food and drink, when we eat completely, then one will make us very happy. We will be satisfied. Similarly, when the Lord is worshipped with pure love, without a tinge of any materialism, without any Mishra Bhakti, the various activities that are performed in the course of that worship awaken the transcendental bliss in the heart of the devotee. Tavat sukhaya bhavato. At that time, pure bliss is manifest within the heart of the devotee. And in Rupa Goswami, in the Padyavali, there is a wonderful collection of prayers that Rupa Goswami, from different scriptural injunctions, has compiled, known as the Padyavali. He says that Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Matiha Kriyatam Yadi Kuto Api Labhyate Tatra Lolyam Api Mulyam Ekalam Janma Koti Sukritir Na Labhyate. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavi Mati, pure devotional service and Krishna consciousness, Kriyatam Yadi Kuto Api Na Labhyate, cannot be obtained even by pious activities. Pious activities means punya karma, by speaking the truth, by giving in charity, building schools, colleges and hospitals. These are all punya karma. So pure bhakti is not dependent on piety, on punya karma. Na labhyate. Tatra lolyam api mulyam ekalam. Only pure transcendental greed, lolyam api mulyam ekalam. That is only the price to purchase pure bhakti. Janma koti sukritir na labhyate. It is not possible, even by thousands and millions of lifetime, to obtain pure devotional service, except by that pure devotional greed, lolyam. Like in the Gruvashtakam, Mangalarti, we sing that Sri Radhika Madhavyo Rapara Madhurya Leela Guna Rupa Namna Prati Shanaswa Dana Lolupasya Vande Guru Sri Charnaravindam. The pure Acharya or the Guru, with great greed, is always, every moment, thinking of Krishna, feeling about Krishna, talking about Krishna, speaking about Krishna Leela, Radhika Madhava Aparya Madhurya Leela, speaking the sweet Madhurya Leela pastimes of Radha and Krishna, with great lolyam, with great greed. That greed has to develop. We all have all these qualities that are there that are apparently considered bad, like greed, anger, all these vices. But because they exist in the spiritual world, they are a perverted reflection in this material world. And that perverted reflection, and in the spiritual world or in the spiritual realm, even greed can be used for pure bhakti. Even anger can be used for pure bhakti. Like Hanumanji Maharaj, in order to burn Lanka, he could not burn it in any other mood but anger. That anger also was dovetailed towards Ram Bhakti, towards Krishna consciousness. So all these moods that are there, that are apparently bad socially speaking, they can actually be doubted for Krishna's service, including greed. And if one has that, that is the only price. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, also one of our predominant acharyas in the line, has quoted this verse of Rupa Goswami, that if one can, like so many things can be purchased if you want to go to India, you buy a ticket, you purchase, there is a price. You paid $1,200 and you are on your way. You go to the market, you buy yourself a shirt, you pay $20 and you get a nice shirt or nice pants. Like that, everything has a price. So what is the price of pure bhakti? So Rupa Goswami defines that in the Padyavali as Tatra lolyam api mulyam ekalam. Only pure bhakti can be purchased by ekalam, only, which is pure Tatra lolyam. So then on, Rai Ramananji talks about the prem levels. So he says, Dasya prem sarva sadhyasar. The relationship where one can become a pure servant of Krishna. Rai kahe, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that aur kaho, aage kaho. So Rai kahe, Ramanand Rai says, Sakhya prem sarva sadhyasar. Then Mahaprabhu's eyes widen and he says, Eho uttam, aage kaho aur. This is very nice, what you are saying. Eho uttam, aage kaho aur. Rai kahe, Vatsalya prema sarva sadhya sar. Ramanand Rai ji says that the to make Krishna, to love Krishna as a parent is the essence of pure bhakti. And Prabhu kahe, Eho uttam. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started saying Eho uttam. Even for Dasya Ras, Mahaprabhu doesn't use the word Eho uttam. Right from the moment the relationship of Sakhya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Eho uttam, aage kaho aar. Then Rai kahe, Ramanand Rai ji says, Kanta prema sarva sar sadhya sar. Kanta prema sarva sadhya sar. So, Kintu yanra yehi rasha sehi sarvottam tattasta hana vicharile ache taratam. It is true that whatever relationship a particular devotee has with the Lord is the best for him. Yes, but still, this is a very important point that is being brought here by Ramananji and by Mahaprabhu's conversation. But still, when we study all the different methods from a neutral position, we can understand that there are higher and lower degrees of love. Not to say that the love of the Sakhas is less, or Mother Yashoda's love is less, but there are certain degrees in terms of specialties. And I don't want anybody to think that all these different rasas are of a lower value, or they are of a discriminatory nature, otherwise we will commit offenses. But Mahaprabhu is indicating here that through this conversation that they're all best for that devotee, whatever relationship they have. But when we study from a different method, from a neutral perspective, then we can understand that there are higher and lower degrees. And then this Gundakye, Swade Akhya Bade Prati Rashe, Shanta Dasya Sakha Vatsalerera, Guna Madhurete Vaishe. As the qualities increase, so the taste also increase in each and every mellow. Therefore, these qualities found in Shantras, in Dasyaras, in Sakyaras, in Vatsalyaras are all manifested in the Madhuryaras or the conjugal rasa. Therefore, conjugal rasa, from a neutral perspective, in a transcendental way, when we try to compare, it has got a very higher specialty. Ei premera anurupa na pare bhajite, ataiva rini hoy kahe bhagavate. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Rai Ramananji says, in the 10th canto, Brahmaji, it is said that Lord Krishna cannot proportionally reciprocate devotional service in the Madhurya Ras. Therefore, he always remains a debtor to the devotees. There's a wonderful verse. I've quoted that before in the Jagannath Rath Yatra Katha. I've quoted that a couple other times. It's a very, very nice verse where some of the verses of Bhagavad Gita fail, especially that verse. But what is that verse? Ye yatha mam prapadyante tamsa tathaiva bhajamiyam. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that one, according to their bhakti, I will reciprocate with them. He kind of is able to, but here he's saying that in the Madhurya Rasa, Krishna always remains a debtor. He cannot reciprocate. Na paraye ham nirvadya samyujam swasadhu krityam vibhutyam sapiva ya ma bhajana durja geha shrinkhalaha samvrishya tadvaha pratiyatu sadhuna. When the gopis were overwhelmed with dissatisfaction due to Lord Krishna's disappearing from the Ras Leela, Krishna returned back to them after the Gopi Geet, and then he said, my dear gopis, our meeting is certainly free of all material contamination. That's another very important point, that there is no material contamination in the relationships of the prem between the gopis and Krishna and Radharani and Krishna. It is not mundane, not the kind of relationship that a husband and wife has in the material world, or a boyfriend and a girlfriend has, where there is material sex and there is sense enjoyment. No, it is way beyond that. And it is impossible to understand that unless and until we come to a level of spiritual platform. So Krishna has clearly mentioned this in this verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that it is free of all material contamination. It is not based on the bodily concept. I must admit that in many lives, it would be impossible for me to repay my debt to you. I am a rini to you, because you have cut off the bondage of family life. You have given up your family. You have given up all the social norms, and you simply to search me, and you have come to me. Consequently, I am unable to repay you. It's impossible. This is the same thing he says when he meets them at Kurukshetra. We had mentioned that in the Jagannath Rath Yatra Katha, where Krishna bows down at the lotus feet of Radharani and the gopis, that it is impossible for me to repay you. Therefore, please be satisfied with your honest activities in this regard. Please be satisfied. The repayment or your payment is your own glorification. I cannot give you anything, because your prem is so high. Your glories itself is your compensation. Please be satisfied with your honest activities, meaning the honest love that you have shown me, the pure love. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Ramananada, Prabhu ke ei sadhyavadi sunischaya kripa kari kaho yadi aage kuch hoy. He says, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, this is certainly the limit of perfection, the prema of the gopis in Madhurya Rasa. But please be merciful to me and speak more if there is more. So see, this is how the greed, that lolium, the lolium or the greed is there even in Krishna. Sitting in Golok Vrindavan, he desired to have that greed of what Radharani felt of his beauty. Why Radharani was crazy, he wanted to feel the bhava of Radha, that craziness. And so that greed was there. That is why he was able to be Mahaprabhu. That is why he came as Mahaprabhu. If that greed had not arisen within Krishna's heart to get that Radha bhav, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not have come to this material world. Yadi Gauranga na hoite tabe ki hoito kemone thaditam de Radhara Mahima Prema Rasasima Jagata Janatake. Vasudev Ghosh is saying in this bhajan that if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there, did not come, Yadi Gauranga na hoito, if he had not come, tabe ki hoito, what would have happened? Kemone tharitam de. I don't think I would have been able to live. Kemone dharitam de. And how would the whole world have known the highest of the highest, Radhara Mahima, the glories of Radharani, Prem or Rasa Sima, the pinnacle of Prem. There is no Prem beyond the Prem of the gopis, no Prem beyond the Prem of Radharani. So that is why Prabhu kahe, Ei sadhyavahi sunischa, kripa kari kaho yadi aage kichu hoy. Is there anything more? Please tell me. And Rai Ramananda replied, until this day, I did not know anyone within this material world who could inquire beyond this perfectional stage. of devotional service. This is the first time somebody has even inquired. Inar Madhya Radhara Prem, then he says, Sadhya Shiromani, amongst all the devotees, that is the crest jewel of what? Inhar Madhya, amongst all, Radhara Prem, Yandra Mahima Sarva Shastrate Vakhani. Among the loving affairs of all the gopis in the Madhuri Ras, Ramananada Rai said that Srimati Radharani's love for Sri Krishna is topmost. The glories of Srimati Radharani are highly esteemed in the revealed scriptures. Yatha Radha Priyas Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tatha Sarva Gopishu Saivaka Vishnu Atyanta Vallabha. Just as Srimati Radharani is most dear to Sri Krishna, her bathing place known as Radhakund is also dear to him. Among all the gopis of Srimati Radharani Srimati Radharani is the supermost and very dear to Lord Krishna. Prabhu kahe, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Aage kaho, sunite pai sukhe, apurva amruta, nari vahe tomara mukhe. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that please speak on. Oh Ramanand, please say more. I'm very happy to hear you, because a river of unprecedented nectar is flowing from your mouth. Look at this. Krishna is asking Vishakha how Vishakha is glorifying Radha. Hari Bol. He says, Churi kari Radha ke nila gopi ganera dare. Anyapeksha hoile premara gadata naspuri. During the Rasa dance, during the Ras Leela, Sri Krishna did not exchange loving affairs with Srimati Radharani due to the presence of other gopis. And because of the dependence of others, the intensity of love between Radha and Krishna was not manifest. It was not possible to manifest that intimate love in the Ras Leela. Therefore, he stole her away. Rai kahe, tabe shuno premara mahima, tri jagate Radhara prema nahika upma. Ramananada Rai said that please therefore hear from me about the glories of Srimati Radharani's loving affairs. They are beyond compare within these three worlds. Vishakha Sakhi, Lalita Sakhi, these Manjaris, they know the intimate loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said with more eagerness, Yehi lagi alima toma sthane, sei sab tattva vastu hoila more jnani. After hearing this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Ramananada Rai, that for which I have come to see you has now become an object of truth in my knowledge. I have perfected the reason for my meeting with you. So Mahaprabhu is so grateful when he hears such in ecstasy to glorification of Radharani. Ramananada Rai says, Ebe jasya janilu shadyo sadhana nirnoy, aage aur ache kichu shunite man hoy. Understand the sublime goal of life and the process of achieving it. It is known as there are three processes when we are doing bhakti. One is Sambandha Gyan. Sambandha means we establish a relationship, or we know that Krishna, we have to establish a relationship with Krishna. That is Sambandha. And during the Sambandha Gyan process or the Sambandha Bhakti process, we practice our sadhana bhakti very nicely. We chant the holy names. We follow the 4 regulative principles very strictly. No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit sex. Constantly engaging the reading of different scriptures, pure bhakti scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, especially Srimad Bhagavatam. When we get time, we should spend time. Mahaprabhu has said that by visiting different tirthas like visiting Vrindavan, Vrajvas, etc., and the association of devotees. So this is all conducive to bhakti. So this is understanding the sublime goal of life, and this is the process of achieving. The process is through establishing a relationship, and then the next process is actually practicing it very strictly so that our anarthas go away, and that particular process is called abhidhyay. And when abhidhyay finishes or culminates, it culminates into prayojan. Prayojan means prayojan means the ultimate goal. When we attain the Krishna Prem, when we attain the lotus feet of Radha Gopinath, when we attain that, uh, when we attain, just like Krishna called out the gopis by playing his flute, Sriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamshi Vatastitaha Karshane Swaner Venur Gopi Sri Gopi Nathaya Sri Astuna. When the gopis were called by the playing of the flute of, they got attracted by the flute of Krishna, and then they all gathered, and then the rasa dance happened. So that is the ultimate goal of getting that highest mellow of Nikunja Rasa. And that is what is indicated here, that understanding the sublime goal of life and the process of achieving it, nevertheless, I think that there is something more ahead, Mahaprabhu says, and my mind is desiring to have it. So he is reading further into Rai Ramanand's heart, that he says, Krishner Swarup Kaho Radhar Swarup, Rasa Kon Tattva Prema Kon Tattva Ruma. Kindly explain the transcendental features of Krishna and Radharani. Mahaprabhu is asking Ramanand Rai. Also explain the truth of the transcendental rasas or the mellows and the transcendental form of the love of Godhead. Kripa kori ei tattva kaho tai amar, toma vina kahe iha nirupiti nare. Kindly explain all these truths to me, but for yourself, no one can ascertain them. This is what Mahaprabhu is asking of Rai Ramananji. Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Keno Nai, Jai Krishna Tattva Vetti, Shai Guru Hoy, Apana Madhure Hare, Apana Mana, Apana Apni Chahite Karite, Alingana. I am not a sannyasi, I am not a brahmana, I am not a shudra. And what am I then? Anyone who knows Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayo Das Anudas Anudas, I am indeed the servant of that Radharani, who is the Gopi Bharta, he who is the nourisher of pure Krishna Prem to all the gopis and the manjaris. That is Gopi Bhartu Padakamala. And some of them translate Gopi Bhartu as Sri Krishna, which are both are correct in one sense. But from the higher perspective, Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayo is the lotus feet of Radharani. And one who knows this tattva, Jai Krishna Vetti tattva, Jai Guru Hoya, those persons are capable of becoming Guru just by knowing this philosophy. Apana Madhurya Hare Apana Mana Apano Apani Chahe Karite Alingana. Lord Krishna's sweetness is so attractive that it steals away his own mind. And that is the reason. And thus, even he wants to embrace himself. One time, upon seeing his own reflection, this is a quotation from Rupa Goswami's Lalit Madhav. He has written a wonderful play where there is a nice treatise between the Leelas of Dwarka Leela and Vrindavan Leela. So one time, upon seeing because Dwarka has been built very beautifully, all the palaces and everything in Dwarka are so immaculate. They were so amazingly constructed that every pillar was like almost like a mirror. So one time, while seeing his image in the mirror in Dwarka, Krishna desired to embrace it. Oh, who is this beautiful person? I would like to embrace this person. Krishna desired that, looking at his own beauty. Also, one time, Krishna, when he was, I forget the name of the kund, I think it was Akrur Kund, where he sees himself, his reflection in the water. At that time, he is also perplexed. Oh, who is this beautiful person? And he was just perplexed at his own beauty, just looking at himself. Krishna himself was mesmerized. Alas, he says, I've never seen such a person before. Who is he? Just by seeing him, I've become eager to embrace him, exactly like Radharani. So that feeling of tasting his own nectar, tasting his own sweetness, that was one of the reasons why Krishna became Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, like this, Eide Sanshepe Kahila Krishner Swarupa, Ebe Sanshepe Kahi Shuno Radha Tattva Rupa. Ramananda Rai ji said that I have thus briefly explained the original form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now let me describe the position of Srimati Radharani. And he says that Premes Paramashara Mahabhav Jani, Shri Mahabhav Rupa Radha Thakurani. The essential part of the love of Godhead or Krishna Prem is called Mahabhav. Amongst all the different bhavs or amongst all the rasas, the transcendental ecstasy, and that ecstasy is represented by Srimati Radharani. Among the gopis of Vrindavan, Radharani and other gopis are considered chief. But when we compare the gopis, it appears that Srimati Radharani is most important because her real feature expresses the highest ecstasy of love. It is the embodiment of love. Her real feature expresses the highest of the highest. And the ecstasy of love experienced by the other gopis cannot be compared to that of Srimati Radharani. Yandra Sadguna Gunere Krishna na paye par, Tandra Guna Gunibe, Kemone Jivachar. Himself cannot reach that limit of Krishna himself cannot reach that transcendental qualities of Radharani. Even Krishna cannot reach those qualities of Radharani. How then can an insignificant jiva entity count? How can they ever? Prabhu kahe, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Jani lo Krishna Radha prema tattva shunite chahi donar vilash mahatva. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, now I have come to understand the truth of the loving affairs between Radha and Krishna. Nonetheless, I still want to hear how both of them they are so glorious and how they enjoy their love. Then Krishna hoye dhir lalita, nirantar kam krida, yandra charita. Rai Ramanan said that Lord Krishna is dhir lalit, for he can always keep his girlfriends subjugated. He can keep all his gopis in a very subjugated position, especially those, he's referring to those are in the Dakshin Bhav. And thus his only business is enjoying sense gratification. He is the transcendental autocrat. Ashlesha Pada Ratam Pinashtumam. He is the transcendental autocrat. So he can do as he pleases. And then, like this, Prabhu kahe, Eho hoy aage kaho aur rai kaho, please tell me more. Ihova I buddhi gati nahi aur. Mahaprabhu said, this is all right, but please continue. The Ramananda replied, I don't think my intelligence goes beyond this now. Yebe prema vilasa vivarta eka hoy tahi shuni tomar sukha hai ki na hoy. He says, Rai Ramananda informed to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that there was a topic known as the Prema Vilas Vivarta. Actually, he has written a book or a drama by that name, Rai Ramananji. And if you want, you can hear that from me, Ramanan said, but I don't know whether you will be happy with it or not. Obviously, Mahaprabhu will be very happy to hear the Prem Vilas Vivarta. So, the Prem Vilas Vivarta is that Radhanath Rai started singing the song he had composed in the Prem Vilas Vivarta. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of ecstasy, because now that mood is there, immediately covered Ramananda Rai's mouth with his own hand, because he now started describing in the Prem Vivarta Vilas all the intimate, loving pastimes of Radha and Krishna, just like Jaydev Goswami describes in the Geet Govinda. The essence, Prabhupada says, the essence of this particular Leela or this transaction is that the transcending loving affairs are relishable during separation and during conjugal enjoyment. So here in the Prem Vilas Vaivarta, Ramananda Rai ji has composed wonderful pastimes about the separation, the union and separation of Radharani. When Radharani was fully absorbed, for example, in the love of Krishna, and when Krishna was not even present, she mistook a black tamal tree for Krishna and embraced it. And such a mistake is called Prem Vilasa Vivarta. And like that, he has recollected many different incidences in union and separation. Radhaya bhavastas chitta jatuni swader vilapya kramad yugyan adri nikunja kunjarapate nirdhuta bheda brahmam kiraya swayam anavaragyadiha brahmanda harmadre bhuyo bhir navaraga hingula bharai springara karukriti. Oh my Lord, you live in the forest of the Govardhan hill, and like the king of elephants, you are expert in the art of conjugal love. O Master of the universe, your heart and Srimati Radharani's heart are just like shellac, like wax, and are now melted in your spiritual perspiration. Therefore, one can no longer distinguish between them. You and Srimati Radharani now You have mixed your newly invoked affection, which is like vermilion, or what we call sindoor, with your melted hearts, and for the benefit of the whole world, you have painted both your hearts red with this great palace, within this great palace of the universe. So here basically is indicating that I know who you are. He's looking at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that you are Radha and Krishna. Prabhu kahe, साधु वस्तुर अवधि ei hoy तुम्हारा prasade इह जानilo निश्चय. He says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirmed that these verses recited by Ramananda Rai, that this is the limit and goal of human life. Only by your mercy have I come to understand it conclusively. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is taking a very, very humble stance, and he's glorifying Ramananda Rai, that only by your mercy have I understood that. Sadhya vastu sadhana vinu keho nahi. Paya kripa kori kaho rai abar upai. The goal of life cannot be achieved unless one practices the process. And now, being merciful upon me, please explain the means by which this goal can be attained, by which this goal of Madhurya Ras can be attained. So Ramanand Rai is being asked, Radha Krishna Leela ei ati gudhatara das guda artha dasya vatsalya adi bhave na hoi gochara. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna are very confidential. They cannot be understood through the mellows of servitude, through Dasya Ras, through the mellows of Sakhya Ras, through the mellows to the rasa of parental Ras or Vatsalya Ras. Shabai eka Sakhi Ganera ihan adhikar. Beautiful. Sakhi hoite hoy ei leela vistar. Actually, only the gopis have the right to appreciate these transcendental pastimes, and only from them can these pastimes be expanded. Sakhi hoite hoy ei leela vistar. Very important. That same theme Prabhupada Saraswati Pad has mentioned in the Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi also. Sakhi vina ei leela pushtanai hoy, Sakhi leela vistariya, Sakhi aswadaya. Without the gopis, these pastimes between Radha and Krishna cannot be nourished. So the importance and the presence of the gopis, the Sakhis, the Manjaris is a must. That's what is being explained here. Without them, the conjugal pastimes of Radha and Krishna cannot be nourished. Pushta nahi hoy. Pushta means it cannot be nourished. Only by their cooperation are such pastimes broadcast. It is their business to taste the mellows. So ordinary people cannot taste it. People in the Dasyaras cannot taste it. People in the Sakyaras cannot taste it, or they cannot understand it. Those even in the Vatsalyaras, they cannot understand it. Only those Sakhis and the intimate associates of Radharani, they are the ones who can understand it. And Sakhi vina leela vistar. It's not possible to expound and to do vistar, to expound on the leelas, on the sweetness of this Madhurya pastimes, of the conjugal pastimes. Sakhi vina ei leela anyar nahi gati. Sakhi bhave ei tandra kare anugati. Radha Krishna kunj seva. Sadhya shei paye. Shei sadhya paite or nahi ka upay. Without the help of the gopis, one cannot enter into these pastimes. Very beautiful. Only when one worships the Lord in the ecstasy of the gopis, following in their footsteps, Raga Nuga Bhakti. Anuga means to follow, and Rag means the pure, deep attachment of the gopis. Following in their footsteps, can one engage in the service of Sri Sri Radha Krishna in the Nikunja of Vrindavan. Only then one can understand the conjugal love between Radha and Krishna. There is no other procedure for understanding that. That is why even exalted Vaishnavas like Narottam Das Thakur, who is Vilas Manjari. I forget which Manjari he is. He's, anyways, it will come to me. He is also praying in one bhajan Radha Krishna Pran Mora Yugala Kishora. And in the last line, he's saying, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Tase Anudasa Sevayadhikaro Diye Narottam Dasa Sevayadhikaro Diye Narottam Dasa. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Dase Anudas, the servants of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, meaning the Gaudiya Acharyas, meaning those Manjaris, when they are kind to me, they will engage me. I'm begging so that they can engage me in the service of Radha Krishna. So without the help of the gopis, one cannot enter into this Nikunja Seva. It is so important. So we have to understand. And then Vibhurapi Sukha Rupa Swapaksho Api Bhavaha Shadam Api Nahi Radha Krishna Ya Rite Swaha Pravahati Rasa Pushtim Chid Vibhutir Iveshaha Shrayanti Na Padam Asam Kaha Shakthina Rasagya. The pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna are self-effulgent. They are happiness personified, unlimited, and all powerful. Even so, the spiritual humors or the hasyaras of such pastimes are never complete without the gopis, the Lord's personal friends. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is never complete without his spiritual potencies, without his Antaranga Shaktis, with the gopis, or the Kaya views of Radharani, or the gopis. Therefore, unless one takes shelter of the gopis, one cannot enter into the company of Radha and Krishna. Who can be interested in the spiritual pastimes? Who can be interested in the spiritual pastimes without taking the shelter? So one cannot be given entrance into these. And then in the Madhya Leela, it is also said that Raganuga Marge Tandre Bhai Yei Jana Shei Jana Paya Vraje Vrajendra Nandan. If one worships the Lord on the path of spontaneous Raganuga Bhakti, goes to Vrindavan. He receives the shelter of Rajendra Nandan, the young son of Nanda Maharaj. And then there are so many different levels of Krishna Prem. I've mentioned this before many times, but quickly to encapsulate Ado Shraddha. Initially we have faith, so we go to the temple, and then we get the opportunity to associate with devotees, Sadhu Sangha. And then the Sadhu Sangha, the true Vaishnavas, guide us for our well-being, and they tell us to do the proper bhajan, so do bhajana kriya, the do's and don'ts of spiritual life. We should do things that are conducive to bhakti, and those that are not conducive to bhakti we should reject. So that is bhajana kriya, chanting the holy name, visiting the holy places, doing satsang, reading Bhagavatam. All these are conducive to bhakti. And what is not conducive to bhakti? Meat eating, intoxication, etc. All these things should be given up, so that so that is called bhajana kriya. And once we follow in bhajana kriya, we get serious in our life, then we take diksha or brahma sambandh from a bona fide guru in a bona fide parampara. And when that happens over a period of time, when we practice our sadhana nicely, then all the different anarthas that are there within our heart, they disappear. We've carried a lot of anarthas from many lifetimes, all the bad, dirty things. Our heart is cleansed. Cheto darpana marjanam. It is completely cleansed. And then we enter into the component of bhakti, where we get into nishtha, we are fixed up. There is ruchi, there is real taste, there is asakti, that we are very attached to bhakti. We are attached to Radha Krishna, we are attached to the Vaishnavas. And then the next stage is bhav. Even in this lifetime, we get a glimpse of what our seva is in the spiritual world. Especially if we are on the guidance of pure Vaishnava acharyas in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line, then we will get a glimpse. If we have followed everything nicely and we have entered the Raganuga Bhakti, then by their mercy we will get a glimpse of what our seva is in Radha Krishna's Nitya Leela. Or perhaps in the Manjari Bhav, assisting other Manjaris, etc. And then after that, that Krishna Prem fructifies, full-fledged Prem. And within that Prem, there is different levels of Prem. Like there is the sneha, there is mana, there is pranaya, there is raga, there is anuraga, there is bhava, there is mahabhav, ruda bhav, adhiruda bhav. There's all these, the last few that I've mentioned, they're all in mahabhav. And then there is modan and madanakya bhav, that is exclusively Radharani's. Nobody can achieve that. So, like this, there are different Nikunja Sevas in the Ashtakal Seva, the Ratri Kal, Nishant Kal, Pratah Kal, Madhyana Kal, Purva Kal, Aparnya, Ahana Kal, Shayana Kal, and Pradosha Kal, the 8 different times of the day where the different gopis are engaged in the eternal Seva of Radha and Krishna. So, like this, we are very fortunate to be in this Brahma Madhya Gaudiya Ghosh line, and there are other pure Vaishnava lines where they are eternal associates and gopis of Radharani, and like that, service to them is the sublime goal, and it is only through their mercy we can enter these pastimes and we can understand who Radharani is and what is the highest seva. So I will end here now. Thank you very much. All glories to Radharani. I hope you all must have got some essence of what the ultimate goal of life is, if at all. Of course, one devotee can have different rasas, just like somebody may love the eggplant sabji, or somebody may like the okra sabji, and somebody may like potato sabji. Each one has a separate taste. So all these different rasas and the relationships are all perfect in themselves. But one has to decide where what rasa one would like to at least have a little inclination. Just like even when you ask a 5-year-old boy, like, what would you like to become when you grow up? Oh, I would like to become a doctor. I would like to become a pilot. Similarly, even the spiritual path of spirituality has got many nuances or perfections or different delineations. Like Krishna even says in the Bhagavad Gita that what is that verse? Bahusakahi anantascha samadhona vidyate. I forget the first 2 lines of that verse. Perhaps my dear friend Dr. Nanpran Prabhu can help me with the first 2 lines of that verse. It has just escaped. Anyways, the essence of that verse is that one's intelligence is many branched. Then one cannot samadhana vidyate. One cannot get expertise or in any one of them. So it's like jack of all, master of none. And we had explained that previously, that supposing even when we are in school, we are studying all the major subjects, history, geography, the 3 different sciences, biology, chemistry, physics. We still learn mathematics, and even within mathematics, there is geometry and trigonometry and other and algebra and like that. All these subjects are. Then once we cross the 10th grade, we have to choose now. What would we like to do? Do we want to go into arts, or we would like to go into commerce, or we would like to take the sciences? So the student decides, okay, now I want to take that. So slowly, all the other subjects will drop out. And then the expertise is, okay, when they go to the first year of science, then they're still studying, other subject matters. But as they graduate and they go into masters, then they will do specific subjects. So if they're taking physics, then they will concentrate on a particular component of physics, like let's say quantum physics as an example. And then they do their doctorate. And even further, they go into all those different nuances. So similarly, bhakti is like that. And right now, of course, we should respect all the paths that lead to the personalism, to the Vaikuntha, to all the bhavas. But ultimately, when we are in a party, if I am admitted to the Harvard Medical School, and if my mind, while I'm sitting in the Harvard Medical School and the professor is speaking about anatomy in that Harvard Medical School, and I'm thinking about potassium permanganate and the reaction of hydrogen and chlorine, like what I'd learned in my school days, then I think I'm wasting my time. Rather than paying attention to the specialized subject for which I'm admitted in, and I'm admitted in Harvard School. So similarly, we as Gaudiya Vaishnavas in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have been admitted by default, by the grace. Already we have been given admission, even though it is in the kindergarten stages of Madhurya Rasa. And Madhurya Rasa contains all the other rasas. So it is up to each devotee. I'm not trying to say that if somebody wants to worship the Supreme Lord as some other rasa, go ahead, do it so. but you have to make a choice at some point. Otherwise, even when one will be, let's say, a pure devotee of Lord Ramachandra, but his mind is going to be in 50 other places of devotional service, then he won't be able to even act properly and perform his duty as a dasyaras in Lord Ramachandra's service, or in Vishnu's service, or in Lord Nrsingadev's service. So that's specialization. So Prahlad Maharaj, he doesn't care to go to Golok. He is perfectly situated in the service of Lord Nrsingadev. So he is perfectly situated in Lord Nrsingadev's planet. Hanumanji Maharaj, he doesn't care to go to Golok Vrindavan. His perfection and the buck stops at the service at the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra. So similarly, the devotees have to first learn and then decide, like, what under the spiritual science, the Vigyan, Vishesha Gyan iti Vigyan, what is the topmost science one wants to excel in? Do you want, or do we want to excel as and be admitted in the school of the gopis eventually and get that perfection as mentioned here in this conversation between Rai Ramananda and Mahaprabhu? Thus I end the glories of Radharani and the Radhashtami 2020 festival. If anybody has any questions or any comments or